All right. The time is now 5:04. We'll go ahead and call this work session into order. Thank you for bearing with us. Our first item of business is a new employee introduction. Lewis Brill, our Public Works Stormwater Supervisor, and here to introduce him is Public Works Director Tate.
Bring
Bring the boss lady up.
So, Commissioners, I'm here to introduce you to our newest epic superstar, Stormwater Supervisor Lewis Brill. And he said some things during his interview that really impressed me. And I asked him to write his own bio because I can't remember all the things he's done because he has done so much in his short life. But I want to read a little bit about his qualifications and what brought him to the city of Red Bank. Coming from Huntsville, Alabama originally, Lewis moved to the Chattanooga area in 2013 to pursue an education at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. While there, he received degrees in environmental science with a concentration in engineering, as well as environmental science with a concentration in biodiversity conservation and natural resource management. During his time at UTC, Lewis studied abroad, and this is what piqued my interest during the interview as I was participating but not active in the interview process. Lewis studied abroad in Cambodia and Vietnam, where he was exposed to the environmental issues facing the local communities there, specifically flooding and water resource issues stemming from overdevelopment and deforestation. Working there helped him to develop a passion for improving stormwater infrastructure and gave him a deep love for environmental conservation. Since then, Lewis has worked in various fields, including utility, forestry, consulting, bike share management with the city of Chattanooga, and public works with the town of Signal Mountain. During his time with Signal Mountain's Public Works Department, he helped manage numerous divisions, including parks and recreation, facilities maintenance, streets, and right-of-way maintenance, as well as helping to oversee the town's stormwater infrastructure and operations. He's received certifications in training in erosion prevention and sediment control level 1 and 2, aquatic facility operations, hazardous material operations, public works supervision, TDOT consultant engineering and inspection certifications, as well as his TDOT aggregate testing technician certification, concrete certified field technician, and the asphalt certified roadway technician certification. So if you can drive on it, he's certified. When Lewis isn't working, he enjoys spending time with his wife, Madeline, and their dogs. Their dogs, Buddy and Uno. My grandson would love Uno. He's currently pursuing his master's degree at UTC in public administration with a focus in local government management, which takes up most of his free time. To blow off steam, Lewis enjoys going mountain biking, running, hiking with his wife and their dogs, paddling his canoe, photography, and spending time singing karaoke extremely poorly with his friends. Lewis and his wife are both huge fans of the Red Bank community and hope to continue living and working here for many years to come. And one thing he didn't share with me in this bio that he told in the job interview that while most of his friends spend their free time playing Xbox, he spends his free time working with ArcGIS.
So we need to hang out.
I said, woo. But Commissioners, Lewis Brill and his wife Madeline, our new stormwater supervisor.
Well,
Glad to be a part of the team. So we're both big fans of Red Bank, so it's a joy to get to be down here and working for my own community, not Signal Mountain anymore. So.
no shade. It's fine. Well, thank you so much for coming on board. We're excited to have you, and hopefully your first week went well. And the next few weeks will maybe be filled with more rain.
Yep.
And you get to really get put to work.
Put you through your paces.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 2, City Manager Performance Assessment Policy Draft Discussion. Mr. Granum.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. And it's hard to follow that. Wow. We are blessed as a staff and as a city to have a superstar talent like that join the team. It's amazing. It is truly amazing. So I put together this presentation. There's a whole lot here, and I won't call it a conversation starter. It is, in fact, a conversation continuance, but maybe this is a reboot on some level. So in your packet is a draft policy, and I'm going to emphasize draft, and I'll explain. There's a lot of background as to how it became what it is. It's just a draft policy, so a conversation starter with respect to a policy. And then also I put this PowerPoint presentation in your packet as well, and they're somewhat complementary. So I'll just get through this PowerPoint. In my presentation, I'll cover some background behind this effort. We'll talk a little bit about the contract between the commission and myself. We'll talk about the engagement I did to come up with this draft. We'll place this policy, this performance assessment in some context here that makes it sort of localizes it, makes it specific to Red Bank and specific to that position. Then we'll go through it in some detail. We'll review it and have some opportunity for discussion. Then we'll decide on what next steps are appropriate based on the commission's desire. Background considerations. A meaningful feedback is a gift. I just had a conversation with one of our employees, and it was pretty candid. And they said, "Thank you." When it's real and timely and honest and supportive, it's a gift. The goal of performance feedback evaluation is to provide the city manager with meaningful feedback. Most of this considerations is from the ICMA guidelines with respect to city manager performance. A best practice is to start with a policy first that doesn't have anything to do with the specifics of the individual involved. It's just, this is how the city of Red Bank wants to conduct this piece of business. And then subsequent performance assessments flow from that policy. So that's really what's at the heart of this, is establish the policy first. A best practice is to have minimal involvement from evaluators or subordinate staff in the administration of the evaluation. So they can participate in the evaluation, but they're not administering it. A best practice is a third-party facilitator. So a policy-based, third-party facilitated evaluation brings consistency and professionalism to the process. Just a little note about my own experience. I've experienced this process in a similar setting, and this proposal is heavily influenced by what I've seen work in another setting. A little bit of history here. There isn't much history here in Red Bank about doing a performance evaluation. None of my recent predecessors, not my immediate predecessor, not his predecessor, and not his predecessor, and not the interims. So we're talking about 20 years of city manager time here before me without written performance evaluation from the commission. And it's not really a common practice. I surveyed the Small Cities Coalition, and Collegedale, the city manager who just left, but in his 4 years, he had one in that 4-year event horizon. Saudi doesn't do it. East Ridge doesn't do it. The only one in this community that does it with any regularity is Lakeside, and the Lakeside city manager has had an annual written performance evaluation. And the other small city in the Small Cities Coalition, Lookout, they don't do it either. So just within our local, and of course the chief executives of Chattanooga and Hamilton County are directly elected, so they don't get a performance evaluation from their legislative body either. They get it in other ways. So it's not really a common practice, even though people talk about it a lot. Within the city of Red Bank, there is not a history of written performance evaluation really anywhere. I take through my predecessors, but with respect to staff, there's only one department who has any history with written performance evaluation, and that's Red Bank Police Department, and that's a function of their credentialing process. None of the other departments have a process of a written performance evaluation. There just isn't that rhythm in our city. Since I've got here, all of my direct reports have received written performance evaluation every year in my 4 years here. And I did that as a down payment on creating a culture of written performance assessment, but I have not rolled it out beyond my direct reports into their departments, because it's a big commitment. Lastly, it's worth noting that every aspect of this process, once we undertake it, creates a public record. So if you write anything down, about my performance, that is a public record. Contract, I laid on your tables the one page in the contract that speaks to the performance assessment. My contract is in two pieces now at this point in my time here. There's two resolutions that have adopted it. I listed them there, but this is really the guts of what it says. And really, it doesn't really say how to do it. It just says it should be done annually. And it creates this idea of a formulary where the commission and the city manager sort of work through it. So this is my attempt at that, of essentially creating a formulary via a policy that would apply not only to me, but subsequent city managers. Of course, it's worth noting that everything is a function of the commission. So I'm proposing this, bringing my experience to it, but ultimately it is the commission's decision. So engagement, who did I talk to before I stand before you today? So my personal experience is profound in this area. I personally have received over 30 written annual performance evaluations in my public sector career, 24 years with the Air Force, and they were annual. And then I received several at my two counties, and I've received one here with the city of Red Bank. So it all adds up to 30. I've been on the receiving end of those. It's worth noting that the intent behind the performance evaluations were different in different cases. The Air Force performance evaluation process is not about making the Air Force better. It's about identifying members of the Air Force who are ready for promotion. And so that's the lens that the Air Force and the military broadly looks at their performance assessment. Can we promote this person? Because the military is up or out. If you can't get promoted, you're shown the door. So that sort of policy background informs how the Air Force and the military generally does its performance evaluations. Not the case with the local government. Local government is really concerned about, in the case of the chief executive, how is the agency doing or the organization doing? And is the chief executive doing their part in the broader agency success? So it's less about the individual. It's absolutely not about my promotion. And it's somewhat less about me as an individual or that person as an individual, and more how is the organization doing under their leadership. I did benchmark from another agency that I have personal experience with, that I looked at their policy and their process, and it's reflected in this proposal. I discussed it in detail with our city attorney. I discussed it with our MTAS rep, and she was quite pleased with it. And I also discussed it in detail with Commissioner Wilkinson, because if you recall, some time ago, the commission asked him to be on point on behalf of the commission in terms of this issue. So I did sit down with Commissioner Wilkinson. We had a good discussion before we brought it into the group. So a little bit of context, which I think is important. Again, I mentioned the Air Force's use of performance evaluation is to identify airmen who are worthy of promotion. That's not the case here, but it does underline the importance of context. So we have an annual framework here that we all operate in as senior leaders within this organization, not just the commission corporately, but commissioners individually, myself and all my direct reports as senior leaders of the city. We have a retreat process, which rolls into a budget process, which rolls into a series of updates from each of the department directors in the fall. And we conclude the fiscal year with an audit, and I'll actually have a little bit more to say about the audit in my city manager report. But there's sort of a strategic framework that we conduct the city's business. We also have a mission and a vision and a goal statement coming out of the retreat. And then we have a unique set of, our organization is unique, the way we're wired together, and we have a unique set of key partners. And I'll briefly go through those last 4 items. Just to remind ourselves, we have a mission statement, which would inform the evaluation of the chief executive. We have a vision statement, which would inform the evaluation of the chief executive. And we have commission goals, which inform the evaluation of the chief executive. These all provide context for how we should look at the individual in that role. Lastly, here is the organization that we have. I'm just one bubble, and I'm the smallest bubble, as a matter of fact, appropriately so. The departments and the directors are where the rubber meets the road. But on the lower left, I really want to highlight the key partners. And this is where maybe the city manager has an outsized influence in maintaining those relationships with those key partners. And there's a whole long list of force multipliers, as I think of them, using a military term. We can't do everything as a staff or as a city. We need key partners, and we need thriving relationships with other agencies, with other nonprofits, with other businesses, with other key members of the community. And the absolute top list is down there on the left, and I have an outsized role. The city manager has an outsized role in sustaining those key partner relationships. So that is the context. Now we'll actually get into a little bit of discussion about the policy that is proposed. My computer fell asleep here. Wake this back up. So the policy as proposed would establish criteria that gets back into that word of a formulary where we all agree on really what are we going to talk about in the context of evaluating the performance of the city manager. Commission goals is top of the list, no accident. And in the policy, it actually prompts some specific areas within that broader commission goal. It prompts the retreat process, promotion of the goals for broad awareness, post-retreat, periodic updates, and ultimately progress and goal achievement. So those are 4 specific sub-prompts under the commission goal. Commission support, and those sub-prompts are information flow and updates to the commission corporately, support for individual commissioners, provides professional advice and counsel to the commissioners and to the commission corporately, conduct of the commission meeting itself, and support of commission processes and official responsibilities of the mayor and vice mayor. So those are under that umbrella of commission support. Community relations, outreach, and engagement. Underneath that, I have intergovernmental relationships, public outreach, citizen advisory boards, and small cities coalition. Leadership of staff and key partners. And then here it really gets into how is the city doing. And I list all 6 departments: public works, community development, police, fire, courts, administration and finance, city attorney, and all other key partners. And I listed a few there just as an example: McCamey, Carta, Hamilton County 911, our licensees, our participation in the TPO, etc. All those key partner relationships. Next up is organizational management and culture. And that's where a lot of the internal services come into the focus. Budget, finance and accounting, human resources, facilities, fleet and information technology, capital planning, development of staff, promotion of high expectations and accountability, and champions continuous improvement. Those are the sub-prompts under organizational management. Lastly, professional development, which is, I actually have a little bit more to say about that in our city manager report, and then a summary of overall performance. Within the draft policy, I established roles, and that's also in our work session packet of defining roles. We also talk about rating scale and definitions, so we're clear on that. Assigning responsibilities, and I assign responsibilities for the Director of Human Resources, and that position essentially is just a timekeeper to remind everybody it's time to commence this process. The city attorney is that third-party facilitator. I have a role to provide inputs. The commissioners have 2 roles. One is to provide inputs as an individual commissioner, and then ultimately to adopt it as a body corporately. And the mayor has a role to synthesize the individual inputs from the 5 commissioners and the city manager, and then prepare basically what you might think of as an executive summary for commission consideration. And I'll just stop there and opine for a second. It could be, not necessarily talking about me and the 5 of you, just in general, a commission, any city manager, they might not all agree. It could be that there's a couple of commissioners, a minority of the commission really don't like the city manager and have fairly critical things to say, but a majority may be largely satisfied. So the mayor may write a report that gets a 3-2 vote. Just wanted to flesh that out thoroughly. It could be, hopefully, it's a positive review and it's a 5-0 vote, but there could be a scenario where it's lukewarm and it gets a 3-2 vote. Those are all possibilities as we just undertake this mental exercise at this point. Next steps. I appreciate you having this giving me this opportunity to kind of explain where I see it. We'll open it up for discussion. Basically, in terms of next steps, we can just say, hey, we want to talk about this some more and bring it back into work session. You can come to me individually if that's what, and we can have one-on-one conversations. And then when I think from a consensus of those, it's ready to come back, we could bring it back in for another work session. Or if the commission is just very satisfied, we could basically prepare this for adoption by a resolution. I know there's a few words going to change in this because I've already gotten some feedback that there's a few words need to be changed. Basically, in some cases, the proposed policy sort of overstates the role of the manager, and it needs to be toned down just slightly so it reflects the subordinate position of the city manager vis-a-vis the commission. But largely, it's what we're looking at here. So, Mayor, thank you very much. Turn it back to you and your colleagues for any conversation you want to continue to have.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Appreciate it. Before we get started, I did just want to touch on one concern that I have with respect to conflict with the contract that we currently have in place with you. And that is from section 1.02, subsection D, which says employee shall personally attend all meetings of the city commission. So which you already know, you're required to be here, except meetings devoted to the subject of the employer's evaluation of employee. So with that being in place, some of how this is written, I think certainly couldn't operate in a regular commission meeting because you are required to be there. So if we're going to discuss any part of your evaluation, then we would have to have a special called meeting or something like that. Mr. Stoltz, can you help?
I think that section is intended to allow the commission the option of the city commission not to have the city manager present. I don't think it's a mandatory thing that says he shall not attend those meetings. But I'm talking from memory from
Okay,
months and months
Sure.
ago.
right. Well, this is in a section 1.02. I don't think that was printed on that page. That's a different section. That's earlier in the contract. It says, it's specific, I copied and pasted it. It says employees shall personally attend all meetings of the city commission except meetings devoted to the subject of the employer's evaluation of employee. So just wanting to make sure that we, if that were to become part of a policy, that we're not in conflict with the contract that's in place.
Mayor, may I comment?
Sure.
I personally didn't flash on that. In some states, not Tennessee, they have the concept of executive session.
Mhm.
And in the state I lived in prior to coming to Tennessee, performance evaluation of the chief executive specifically was one of a very few things that were eligible for executive session. The other one was purchase of real property, which we've done too. And it's awkward to have those conversations in public. We're basically telling the world what you're willing to pay for a parcel of land. But that's not the case here. We don't have executive session really as a concept in Tennessee. So everything that is discussed is open to the public. Even if I were asked to leave, or even if any city manager were asked to leave, it's still a public meeting.
It is, but the language is, just looking at the language of the contract.
Yeah, it says he has to be here for a regular meeting. He wouldn't have to be here for a meeting where that was discussed.
Okay. Thank you.
But it would still have to be a public meeting.
Yes, absolutely. Which I know is something that Vice Mayor has tried to bring up with our state legislators in the
And
past,
TML, yes.
to no avail.
Yeah, the state of Utah, for example, allows any personnel matter to be handled in executive session for obvious reasons, but
Right.
not in Tennessee.
Correct.
We all know there's a principle of do what I say, but not as I do.
Sure. Yes,
Or, local, or in the state.
exactly.
I just wanted to add, I had some hand in the city manager's most recent contract because the mayor is, I was mayor at the time, and the
Yep.
mayor is authorized to negotiate with the, attorneys on both sides. And my interpretation of that statement, not being a city attorney myself, was that, he's required by contract to be at all city commission meetings.
Yeah.
And basically that clause gave him an out to not have to be present for that meeting in case it might make him uncomfortable to,
Sure. Yes.
or it might,
Which makes
influence,
sense.
our ability to evaluate, having him be present, but not necessarily prohibit him from being present.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that. Commissioner, did you have any?
I do like the timeline and that it's August and September because that's for a seated commission and it's not rolling into an election in
Right.
November and there's more time to
Absolutely.
truly evaluate the city manager from at least a year or 2 months into the year
Mhm.
to truly evaluate.
And
But-
budget's well and over.
Yes. I do like the idea that it's kept with us. It's not another company that we pay that comes in to use that intention. But it's among us with the city attorney.
Yep, so I'm kind of winging this a little bit, but Mr. Granum and I did discuss this and, I reviewed it ahead of that discussion and I didn't have a whole lot of meaningful feedback to provide. I mean, it seemed well thought through. You looked externally for some guidance and some framework to build this thing around. I mean, in my opinion, I think empirically it checks those boxes that need to be checked. How are we progressing towards those goals? How are you doing as an employee? You read the document, and I don't think it really leaves a whole lot of question in my mind to be asked. So that was kind of my takeaway prior to our conversation that day, and stand by that.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes?
The same thing. I'll read over it again later, but as well as it seems pretty straightforward. There may be a few things like you mentioned that might need to be tweaked.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor,
Thank
if I may, will there be a rubric created based on?
I mean, I think
A
we
scale
get
of
to
1 to
determine
3.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, the city manager had proposed, a scale in his proposal. But we can always tweak that
Sure.
or whatever if we think we need to. The only other concern that I have, the primary concern that I have, is we do have a certified human resource manager on staff, and she would not be participating in the evaluation itself. And it doesn't make sense to me that we wouldn't be using a salaried staff member to assist with this who is certified in human resource management. And also using MTAS to administer the actual, because I think we can talk to them about incorporating this as part, like these specific elements to us, like the retreat goals and things like that, that we want to evaluate the city manager on. And I feel like they could probably incorporate that into like a generic policy that they have or generic procedure that they have. And those are, we already pay Miss Perry. She's a salaried staff member. MTAS is paid through fractions of pennies on our tax dollars. And not to diminish anything you bring, Mr. Stoltz, and all to the table, because you are our legal counsel and you are worth every single penny and then some. But just wondering if we don't necessarily need to have an additional cost associated with this process when we already have a staff member and a resource like MTAS that could help facilitate and administer the evaluation from beginning to end. And I don't know, like you mentioned, I thought it was interesting you mentioned about that you could potentially have a 3-2 if there's somebody who's like little lukewarm on something. That could include the mayor. I'm not saying it's me, but in the future, thinking about the future, if there's a mayor who doesn't get along with the city manager, how are they going to potentially summarize that evaluation? Would there be any bias included in that? We used MTAS to help us at the tail end of the evaluation that we did on you in 2023. And they were able to provide a summary. They pulled together all of the comments and our remarks on, the actual things that we wanted them to evaluate on, and then put together a summary for us. And to me, we already have that service where we have a very good relationship with Hannah and Betsy. So I feel like maybe we could look at going that route, like implementing a policy, but having MTAS and our human resource manager, director of administration, all of the hats, help facilitate and administer the evaluation. So I just wanted to put that forward.
One thought there, would it be a conflict of interest since Ms. Perry is a direct report of Mr. Graham?
A conflict of interest for her to act as the human resource director?
Yes, in that, does that?
To send us the timeline
Well, no, I mean, beyond that, like.
and the forms?
You were suggesting a more involved part of the process?
No. Just that she would literally be saying, hey, we're starting it. It's August. Here are the forms. Include Mr. Stoltz on the email because we absolutely need his legal counsel to make sure there's nothing out of in conflict with the contract, or any charter or city policy. And that would be it. Then we would send them back to her, and then all of that would go to MTAS, and then they would formulate the report like they did last time. Is that what you did at the end?
Yeah,
Okay.
I sent all the info I gathered it and sent it to Hannah,
And then we had the report come to us and we adopted it in an open meeting, correct?
I can't remember if we did that or not.
I don't.
It was presented to us.
Yeah,
It was provided to us. We don't have to vote on it.
Well,
Do we have to vote on it?
This would be a vote.
Okay.
But this one would be the way it's styled here.
Yes, it would be a vote. The previous report was really never presented. It just got emailed to everybody.
So we could incorporate that element that was missing. We could say that it becomes a vote to adopt the report like we do after MTAS facilitates our strategic planning retreat. And then they send us the report and it comes in and we say, okay, this is what we did and what we talked about. We all agree that it's good to go. And then we vote on it.
Go ahead. Now I have.
I'm curious what the formal vote adds to this as opposed to making it an agenda item. The city manager, unless it's outlined in the city manager's contract that the evaluation would be voted on, I don't see what would stop us from simply making it an agenda item. The city manager's review has been completed. Here are, the reviews from the commission submitted to public record. So everyone knows, unless, there needs to be some kind of, vote to make it official, what his official rating is, I think a 0 through 3 scale is what was proposed in that draft. Unless we need to vote to agree on what the number is for that versus, it could be presented that here are the 5 evaluations, here are the scores that each of the 5 of us gave him, here's the average of those scores, here's the agenda item, it's been completed, check.
Right.
What does the vote add to that?
Is that a Mr. Stoltz?
Can I speak? So what I'm really looking for is a concise statement on behalf of the body. When it's a sum of 5 individual parts, it's anybody's guess what really the commission as a body says. You can cherry pick, you can ignore it. what I have seen as a best practice was exactly the process I've outlined here. It came to a vote. It relied on the mayor to bring the capabilities of the mayor to this issue. What is the executive summary from the mayor? And then that becomes, and the community will see that. The community kind of wants to know, where do I stand vis-a-vis the commission? They don't really want to read 5 different reports and figure it out. They really want a clear statement from the mayor. Hey, the mayor's happy, the commission's happy.
And what if the mayor's not happy?
Well, I'll tack on to that
To be
too.
honest with you, that's a healthy
Agreed.
conversation to have.
Yeah.
If the mayor's not happy, I think the city manager should be looking for a job. And it should be honest that the city manager should be looking for a job. I really think the community should be informed about those key relationships in a transparent way. That's the whole idea with this public. I mean, I'm really not too excited about this process personally, but professionally, I think it's healthy for the community. I think it's very healthy for the community to see this play out publicly. Where does the city manager stand? Is he endorsed by the commission, or she endorsed by the commission? Is the commission supportive? When that person gets on the media, on Facebook, opines in a commission, city manager's report, is that person, representing the commission? And I think it's important for the community to know that. And this is the annual way. There's one thing I also should have said about the Air Force process, and it's a best practice for all processes, is this is not the time for troubles to be initially identified. The Air Force process was, if there was an emerging trouble, that was dealt with separately in a timely fashion. And what was done about that, if it was still an issue or if it was resolved, only that was referenced in the performance assessment. So let's say an airman goes out and gets a DUI. And that typically is a career killer in the Air Force. But they got arrested, it went into diversion, the local jurisdiction absolved it, and the commander writing that performance assessment decided that this airman that wasn't going to be a career-ending event. So they could say something in the performance evaluation like, Airman X got into some difficulty and resolved it thoroughly and completely and is a better airman for it, and I absolutely endorse this person. Similarly, if they thought it was a deadbeat, they could have said, person got a DUI on the state, and leave it at that, and everybody would have known what that meant. It was very nuanced, but it was healthy. There's reams of policy guidance from the Air Force side about how they conduct performance assessments. They don't just get a form and start filling it out. They go to school on how to do a performance assessment. And so that's really what I'm trying to bring here is this conversation in a generic sense. Speaking, I think what this is intended to do is produce a clean executive summary, ideally 2 pages, front and back, 1 piece of paper. That's a statement of the mayor's synthesis of these inputs, and it gets a vote from the commission. And everybody really, it's just very clear. That is actually what I have seen. And it was a healthy process, and the community really understood what the relationship between that position and this corporate body was.
So one thought to tack on to that. I'm reading on page 4 of the work session document here. It will have 6 unedited attachments. This is the executive summary memo, the city manager's input, and each of the commissioners' inputs. The mayor's executive summary will be formally presented to the commission for consideration and vote. So I think to address your concern about the mayor, putting a particular slant one way or the other, the check there is by the commission, and the commission will review that and say, oh, that's not it's a disingenuous take of, how we actually feel about this. So there's sort of an iterative process there, I think. So.
And it's an evaluation. It's not, now I know this body hires, at the same time, indicating to the city manager, how's the job going? And then if this person chooses to go away, then they can choose to go elsewhere. But I think it's just the honest evaluation. I don't look at it as a hire or fire, but I do like the idea of stepping into evaluating in little steps before it comes to this. I think that's probably already happening, but that this is a public evaluation, that we're engaged with the city manager.
Right. Did you read the report that we had, that MTS put together? It was unedited. It had all of our comments unedited attached to it. And then it was a summary of like the scores basically, and just kind of like, oh, the commission seems to, believe that Mr. Granum is really great at communicating because he got a score of such and such. And like a summary of that, of all
Was
of
that on the commission?
No,
No.
that was before your time.
Oh.
I just wasn't sure if you had ever seen it.
No, I don't-
Okay.
I haven't
No.
seen it either.
Oh, that was before you as well? Oh,
Just the two of us.
Well,
so it was 22?
Maybe it was 20.
Okay.
and the other piece of that is not all the commissioners participated. And one of the reasons I put Arnold in charge is he has a way of getting each of you to respond.
Eliciting
Choice of-
responses.
And MTS is in a very weak position in terms of expecting anything from an elected official.
I'm gonna stand on that. I do think we need to use MTAS. I thought that was a fire alarm. I was like, oh no, guys. That is the process that Lakeside uses, actually. They use MTAS to facilitate that process for their city manager's evaluation. And I think it works very well. I think we need to incorporate the specifics. I like the specifics that you included for like what we need to be looking at to like evaluate for, especially particular to Red Bank and the things that we care about and our community cares about. We can talk more about the mayor's executive summary, but it sounds like we are about out of time. We need to do citizen comments, but I think when we already have resources on hand, that we should utilize those resources. And why else would we have empowered Ms. Perry to go to school and get certified as a human resource manager, if not to be able to know all of those things and participate in continuing education on how like best practices around evaluation processes, but vetting that with MTAS, which you already do on a lot of things, I believe, right, with Ms. Betsy.
Might we wait till the next meeting to have a little more, like Commissioner Holmes mentioned, looking over it
Right.
just a little bit more?
Oh yeah, I think I
Give
I
us
definitely
before
don't
vote.
think we're gonna have to have more conversation.
Put it back on the next agenda for more discussion maybe, or.
Potentially, or have, discussion like you said, one-on-one, in between now and that time, decide if we need to have it on the agenda again, or if we can kind of, like Mr. Graham, when he meets with us one-on-one, he can kind of get consensus individually that way and then have something that's ready to be voted on. My other major concern is the fact that Ms. Perry did try to initiate this on August the 1st, and we are now October the 7th, and your evaluation isn't done. So how is that gonna proceed for this year? Are we just not going to do one? I just want to put that out there
In the policy, it basically allows that the commission can do it whenever they want.
with the timeline. We can adjust the timeline.
Yes,
Yeah,
without having to redo the policy.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
I did see that. That's at the end. I'm sorry. Thank
No
you.
worries.
All right, so I think we have to go ahead and stop there so that we can take citizen comments on items on the agenda. Since we didn't get to any, I assume we'll have to take all of them off of the consent agenda tonight. Okay, Mr. Granum?
Yes, I'm trying to pull up my normal, and it was up and it closed. on me.
Spiel.
My normal spiel.
You don't have it memorized?
I just wing
What's
it.
going on there?
We should all kind of have it
evaluation.
memorized.
This is the time for citizen comments. Comments should be addressed to the commission as a whole, and not to a particular commissioner, city staff, or to the audience. The commission is here to listen, not to dialogue. And in work session, they're limited to 2 minutes or less. Any member of the public is invited to come up. Please begin by stating your name and address.
Thank you, Mr. Granum. Any comments? All right. If there are no comments, do we have any other business to discuss? Okay, if there's no other,
I was gonna say, we got 15 minutes. Do we want to bang out some of these?
is everyone amenable to returning back to the agenda? Okay,
Bathroom break, whichever.
All right.
As long as we leave at least 5 minutes for
okay.
bathroom break.
All right, we will return to item number 3 on the consent agenda, approve the debt policy update, resolution number 25-1845. Ms. Perry?
Yes, ma'am, this is the MTS model that we have had in place. It was just kind of tucked in a drawer, so it hadn't been made public knowledge. We just pulled it out, updated it to Red Bank, and added our CIP information to it.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions about that, Director Perry? Okay, moving right along to item number 4. Also on the consent agenda, ratify expenses for emergency repairs to traffic signal at Pineville Road and Signal Mountain Road in an amount of $25,068.10. Resolution number 25-1846, Director Tate.
Thank you, Mayor. On Sunday, September 21st at 3:43 a.m., a motor vehicle missed the turn at the Pineville Road intersection and ran through a fire hydrant and our traffic control box, knocking the traffic signal completely out and destroying all the components therein. Justin Hedrick came in at that time, closed the roads off the stop signs, called our one of our key partners, Nabco Electric, who is certified in traffic control signals, who happened to have all of the equipment in stock necessary. And within about a 3-hour time, they rebuilt the traffic control intersection at an expense of $25,068.10, which will be recovered from the person's insurance.
That's nice.
Excellent, thank you.
That was my question.
Yes, it's filed, it goes to PEP, our public entity partners, correct? And then
It goes to their insurance.
right,
Yeah,
well,
we-
I mean, PEP handles that for us, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That-
Great.
Does it? Yeah.
Question? Has a
That
question.
signal did not have a wrap on it yet. Did it? An art wrap? Is it slated for a future art wrap? That one?
Be sometime next year.
Next year? Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, let's move on to item 5 on consent agenda, appoint Anthony Sims to the Cemetery Advisory Board, resolution number 25-1847, Director Tate.
Thank you again, Mayor. Commissioners, recently we had 2 vacancies on the Cemetery Advisory Board. One of those was filled recently by Ms. Rhonda Basner, and Mr. Anthony Sims had submitted his application with interest to join this board. He's been a resident of Red Bank since 2020 and brings with him a sincere commitment of community service. His interest in joining the board stems from a desire to contribute wherever he can, using his skills to support his neighbors and fellow citizens. His application was reviewed by the Cemetery Advisory Board and received unanimous approval for presentation to the City Commission. If appointed, Anthony will fill the final vacant seat on the board, completing our advisory team and strengthening our capacity to preserve and eliminate Red Bank's historical heritage.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Sims. We appreciate you volunteering to serve. I believe your wife also serves on one of our advisory boards, correct? Love that. Love to see it.
But I really appreciate the approval and I'm excited. I think cemeteries are important, so.
And we have a, very long journey ahead of us with the field. So we appreciate you stepping up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item number 6 on consent agenda, formally join the Trust for Public Lands 10-minute walk campaign and reaffirm the commission's 2022 goal to develop parks within the 10-minute walk initiative, resolution number 25-1848. Director Tate.
Thank you. I'm filling in for Jeffrey Gravy, who is celebrating his anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yes. 2 years together. Tonight, we're bringing forward a resolution for the city of Red Bank to formally join the Trust for Public Lands 10-minute walk campaign. This is not a new concept for our city. In fact, in 2022, the commission identified develop parks within a 10-minute walk as a formal commission goal, and former Mayor Berry signed the original commitment on behalf of Red Bank. What we're doing tonight is following back up to keep this initiative at the forefront of everything we're doing in the parks and recreation world. I want to be clear that this is not a legally binding policy, but rather a goal and a community desire that is affirmed in our Parks and Recreation Master Plan adopted in 2024. The master plan identifies the 10-minute walk initiative as both a benchmark and a priority for our residents. Joining this national campaign is one way for us to reaffirm that commitment. Currently, only 26% of Red Bank residents live within a 10-minute walk to a park, and we know that we can do better, and we're already making progress. Upcoming projects, such as the new municipal park anchored around basketball, will increase that percentage by an estimated 12% once completed. This is exactly the kind of investment that moves us closer to our goal of making parks accessible, equitable, and central to the daily lives of our residents. By adopting this resolution, we're keeping this initiative visible, reinforcing our long-term commitment, and ensuring that Red Bank continues to prioritize park access for everyone in our community.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any comments or questions?
I appreciate city staff keeping this at the forefront because we know it's so easy for initiatives like this to get kind of buried underneath a pile of new initiatives.
Well,
So.
we've been talking about it for 3 years now. You know, in various ways, and it's always brought up in discussions.
Mhm. Yep. I actually didn't know that we hadn't already voted on it, so.
Well, I didn't realize that either.
I thought that was a done deal a while ago.
Yes, so we're recommitting. Thank you. All right, item 7 on consent agenda, purchase of steps for fire department training facility, resolution number 25-1850 Wood. Fire training Captain Wood, thank you for being with us.
Good evening. So this is pretty straightforward. As some of you may know, in the past couple of years, we've been constructing a drill tower adjacent to our fire station number 2. By doing this over time and out of our training budget, we've been able to construct it much more affordably than having one engineered and brought in by the tune of several hundred thousands of dollars cheaper. Over this process, we've been able to construct most everything inside of our normal budget. There haven't been any issues. This is a budget expense. However, due to increased materials and the scope of work, it exceeded the threshold where it had to have commission approval. So this is for construction of the steps from the second story to the third story and the third story into playground access.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions for Captain Wood?
Can we see the training facility sometime?
Absolutely. Anytime you like. Yes, ma'am.
We'll
I'll
schedule
have
a
to
visit.
come. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How long will it take you to build those stairs? Because it looked pretty lengthy.
So we won't construct those.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason we have to bid these out because it's our life safety. It's an egress route. We have somebody else come in and engineer those and install those.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Wood. Do we want to cover one final item?
Well, that's a big one.
The vision. Oh, is it? So you want to talk it more in depth? We'll hold off. Let's, if
Chickens.
everybody's okay with that, we'll hold off.
Chickens.
Um,
Or will that take long?
Well, that's already on, that's a separate agenda
She's
item.
up.
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
separate
it's
agenda
not
item.
on the
Oh.
consent agenda. Yeah.
Oh,
And
she's ready.
the RFP too, I would say we need a little more discussion on, so.
Mhm.
If everyone's okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn the work session now, and then we'll return at 6 for our regular meeting. Thank you.